All right. So we should actually be back online live now. I apologize for all of the issues. But we think it was because. So again, tell us. Ernest will be watching chat. Tell us if we run into issues. But we believe that it was because I had a docking station set up and I was getting some input lag there, which was overwhelming everything. But to kind of reset, this is your brand, your business. We were talking with Jeff, who is the full-time behind-the-scenes manager for StellaChuu, who's a cosplayer and streamer. Um, and we were learning about what is the administrative side of streaming, or what goes into keeping a stream running day to day. So far, Jeff has told us that A, it's already way more than a normal workday, like 12 to 18-hour days,
Mhm.
and B, because of the industry that we're all in, things often tend to happen last minute, even if they require a lot of planning. Especially in
Mhm.
Stella's case, right, Jeff? I mean, cosplay takes time. You have to build a lot of those things, or at least find someone to build it if you aren't doing it yourself. So how do you deal
That's
sort
true.
of administratively with those kinds of delays or short
Um,
notices?
Honestly, it's just I think it's been time and experience at this point. She is brilliant at mapping out how long it's going to take to get something done. Just starting out, that becomes a little bit harder, and I fully urge people to ask for help for people more familiar with the industry. Most people are very willing to give that knowledge. It's She makes it easy on me on that side. I just tell her when to keep the calendar open. I'll tell her what people want when they want it, and she decides whether or not she's going to be able to get it done in time.
Mm-hmm.
And if they need rush, I mean, as with any industry, you add a little bit more to the price tag.
Yeah, and that's actually
Uh,
something we've talked about before on this show with the, all right, if you're going to ask more from me, I'm going to ask more from you, being a fair thing to do,
mhm.
not something to be scared of. So, how long ago did you make the transition to doing this full time?
Dedicated full time, I started doing this in November. Realistically, I've been doing this for a little over a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It just got to be so much, and that, you know, through the help of actually working with both of you, I've been able to realize that there is a better opportunity to focus my time on this. And yeah, since November.
Okay. And before November, what did it look like in terms of, like, I guess I'd say, what did it look like in terms of building up to full time? When did you guys realize first that it made sense for you to, start working in the business? And then when did it make sense for you to start doing full time? Like, what were those decision points?
Um, I would have to say probably early to mid of last year, I started noticing that her demand was becoming a little bit higher. So, hold on one second. Sorry, I'm getting a echo in my ear somewhere. I'm trying to figure out where.
Probably me.
All right, can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I'm having like a 2 second delay where it's coming into my ear after I say it.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, fun.
Are you watching the stream? Because that's usually what does it to me.
No, stream's muted.
Okay.
It's on, but it's muted. But anyway, yeah, about mid last year, I just decided that we were adding more to the demand of me needing to be available. And I decided that it was time to really start thinking about whether financially I could make the move. And we were making enough income to support the both of us.
So, but removing the finance piece of it, would you say that would you have made the jump to be full-time part of it sooner if you remove the finance piece, just because there's that much burden when it comes to the administrative side?
Absolutely. As you saw, we just had some serious technical difficulties that
Right.
The one running the show had to fix real time. I cannot tell you how many times I would be at my last place of employment and I'm just getting texts and phone calls galore, and there's no way I can take the call because something is breaking and she's supposed to be live and she has no idea what's happening. She's familiar with the setup, but I've given her some pretty complex setups that she's not as familiar with, and it's pretty hard to troubleshoot through text.
Well, and that's not because of the nature of the content, right? That there are some unique tech setups for that, but that's not unique to everything, right?
No.
Like there's people who have capture cards who are broadcasting from a PlayStation or a console, and so those same issues apply.
Yeah, I think it really just broke down to we had enough work to do where if finance or money was never a concern, I would have left a long time ago, because peace of mind. I was having more fun doing this. It was a lot of work, but it was something I actually fully enjoyed. So I was ready to make that leap. In the real world, we had to bring finance involved, so I had to sit out a little bit longer. But if that was never a factor, I would have left a long time ago, because I'd rather work an 18-hour plus day doing something I love than just being a mindless drone, is what I felt like at my last place.
Do you find yourself doing, if you had to allocate percentages to it, how much of it is kind of long-term planning and scheduling as opposed to just day-to-day tech issues? I mean,
I'd actually say at this point, it's probably about 50-50. Gotcha. Tech issues, I haven't had a stream yet to not have a tech issue of some kind. I actually have, sitting next to me, another monitor that I keep peeking over at that is her stream to make sure that it's still running. So I have monitors running to make sure everything is still connected. Because she's live right now on a different channel, but I can't even stop to paying attention to it. So
what would you say kind of is the thing that wears on your mind the most as you kind of like wake up in the morning, as opposed to like not, we've got a con we've got to go to, or we've got, this big thing we're doing. What's the thing that you wake up and it's like, man, I've got to deal with this every single day. And kind of make sure that I'm paying enough attention to that?
I would say the biggest wear on my mind is my 6 to 12 month plan. Like where is this going to be in the next 6 to 12 months? The internet is a fickle beast, and we never know what it's going to look like. I'm a nerd. I read a lot of very boring things. I look at internet policy changes. I look at finance records. I look at the fun stuff, like where is the industry moving? What are the trends look like? I have to pay attention to all of that. Thankfully, I enjoy it. But yeah, I'm looking at what's going to happen 6 to 12 months out from now.
Gotcha. So, Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and yeah, that's like the first thing when I wake up. That is the first thing in my head is what can I do today to make sure we can still do this 6 months?
Kind of future-proof it. Well, Galen had a tweet that kind of stuck with me, because he saw the Eagles, I think at I forget where, somewhere.
Yeah, the forum. That was really fun. That was in September.
Yeah. But there was something they said, right, Galen? And do you remember the quote? It was like, look, we thought we would do it. Well, you go ahead. I don't remember it. Do you know what I'm alluding to?
No, this was from September.
Oh, okay. It was a quote something along the lines of like, hey, we didn't think we'd be doing this more than like a year. Oh. And it's been like 30 years or something, and we're still going. Right?
Yeah.
But they just adapted, and I mean, they had a member die within the past 10 years because they're the Eagles. They've been playing since the 60s or something like that, or 70s, I guess. But they basically said we never expected to be this famous. We always expected to have to take it one day at a time, and that's what they've done. And they've done some forward planning on it, and they've scrambled and scrambled and scrambled and felt like it was always going to fall apart. But by having that focus on just keeping it going, they've managed.
So then, Jeff, I'd ask you this then. What would you tell people in terms of, okay, I get it. I'm a broadcaster. It's not just on camera. I've got tech issues and all these other things, but that's kind of to be expected. But what would you say is the thing that people don't understand that you've got to deal with, that you as a team have to collaborate and deal with?
I think you said it best at the beginning of this show when we were still choppy. So if they didn't catch all of it, it's
the slideshow version of the show.
I think it's that. Oh crap! I just totally lost my train of thought on that one. So repeat the question again.
So what would you say is the thing that people don't know what goes into the work, right? When you're grinding it.
It is what happens when the camera's off. And I think that's the people that people don't see is you don't realize that for my instance with Stella as the cosplayer, she doesn't just put on the costume and then she's done. She doesn't just turn on her stream and then she's done. It it is planning. It is making the craft side of things. Tech, like you said, tech is always going to be a thing, but it's beginning to understand the time that you're going to need to put into it off camera. And off camera being that loose term for any time you're not in a public eye.
You mean
So
you don't
I
just
think
like walk to a random wall, pose against it, take one photo, and you're done?
I wouldn't. I'd be lying if I said we don't do that sometimes. But
well, that's the business owner solution, right, Gail? So I'm not sure if either of you have ever heard this, but you're going to have both long-term and short-term problems, right? And whether you could look to do a Band-Aid fix now, but it's going to cost you later, whether it's finances or time later. And then sometimes you'll make a long-term decision that will impact the short-term. And there's no right answer for all of these questions. It's a trade-off, right? You can't, ignore the short term, but you can't ignore the long term. So I was going to ask, what are some pain points you found outside of tech? That like, okay, this is something that we've had to deal with often, and I'm trying to find a solution for this, or this is something that's taking up an inordinate amount of time off camera, and we've had to deal with this. And we've decided maybe to outsource it, or we've decided to maybe bring that in-house and figure out how to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I would. That's been a big pain point since I've left my previous place of employment. Is I then took on all that work that we were outsourcing. So I didn't realize how much we were outsourcing until I needed to save money and bring it back to me. So now my pain point is finding the hours in the day to do it all, and actually realizing how spread out revenue streams are and where I can afford to continue to outsource. And like I said, that finance to me is always a big part of it, and I have to make sure that I take on as much as I can without breaking. That's been, I think, the biggest piece for me is realizing how spread out it was and trying to refocus it, make sure that we can actually get the content out that we've promised to people.
One thing that I wonder too is what percentage, God, it sounds like someone's murdering a child outside. I don't know if you guys heard that. But
I did. It was a blood-curdling scream.
What percentage of your time is spent, I'd say, what percentage of your time is spent with as Ernest was saying, sort of things that come up day to day and making sure that tomorrow happens versus making sure that 2 months from now, 6 months from now happens, a year from now? Because I know this is something that you focus on a lot, is where, not only what are we doing now, but where do we want to be going?
I would say at least half of my day. I'm trying to get better at just calling it quits and being like, I have to stop thinking about it because there's nothing I can do now. So I do try and have like an even split of just doing things, like just the day-to-day tasks versus planning and thinking. So I will, that's why I was trying to say I spend the morning with the administrative, figuring out what's going to happen, sitting down with Stella, talking about what the next day, the week, the 6 months, what that's going to look like. And then the rest of the day, just doing whatever it is I've decided that needs to be done for that one day. If I can get ahead of it, great. If I can't, whatever. Thankfully, Stella has put complete autonomy in me. She's just like, I trust you to make these decisions. But, I don't feel right not looping her in as much as possible.
Of course. Well, one thing Galen and I have found is some of our most successful clients, maybe not financially, but on the administrative side, making sure they're organized, just corporate health and general kind of handling thing. Yeah. They are people who are in relationships and they kind of split the workload. So kind of how did you guys approach that splitting of the workload, right? Because is it fair to say, and I don't want to, be wrong, but she's the creative, right? So she's
100% the creative.
So she's doing the content, the planning for ideas and all of that. I'm sure you're pitching in on that. And then you're kind of the what is it, left brain? Which one's the artistic side?
I don't know.
I get it backwards. Okay, we'll say the left brain is the kind of the logical side.
Whatever side of the brain it is, she is 100% the talent, the creative, the whatever you want to call it. I am incredibly proud of everything that she's managed to achieve and continues to achieve. Yeah, I would say that we kind of sat down and looked at what her day looks like, what she needs to put into that creative time. And being creative, I've discovered can be pretty taxing on people, to be thinking at that level all the time. How do you make something new? How do you make something appealing? So if it hasn't, I basically sat down and removed myself from doing any of that. And if it fell outside of creative realm, that went on my plate. Gotcha. And it's been readjusting here and there. Like at a certain point, I'm doing too much. Do you have any free time to handle this? And we start small and just kind of take things off my plate, put them on hers, figuring out where we can go with it.
So an ongoing process, and it sounds
it's never perfect. We were talking a little bit before stream just about how we're all just kind of winging it here. Mm-hmm. I like to think it's a little bit educated and, trial and error. We figured this out over years of experience, and we have a lot of friends that do this as well. So we talk to each other about how their best practices and share ideas. But it's every day you have to make sure that you're communicating and understanding where each other are, both mentally and physically, to find that best balance for both of you, or nothing is going to get done.
And it sounds like, you feel that you're kind of at capacity, right?
Yeah, because I still do my own stuff outside of outside of StellaChuu. I still have my own thing. So I do freelance, I contract outside, and I have to be able to do that and get the work done that has been promised.
So one thing I've always heard, and I thought it was a really good kind of like workload management philosophy. I haven't got there. I don't know if you guys have, or if you have a plan to get there. This is the philosophy, is that at any given point, you really should only be working at about 90% capacity. And the reason for that is when the last minute project comes up, you have the capacity to do it, and you're not always kind of like working through burnout. So if you have any sort of like, and this may be putting on your spot, but kind of a plan in place to try to get to like a lower capacity where, you could take risks, either in the business with other ventures, or just have time to have a cup of coffee and relax.
Kind of. Okay. I mean, I definitely am nowhere near working at 90% capacity. I am working almost every waking hour. I'm doing work in some capacity. I can't say that I'm working at 1,000,000% every second, because, after 8:00 at night, I'm online playing video games, but I disappear all the time to go do work and then come back. But I think the plan is, and you've probably all heard the term spend money to make money. I am more and more seeing how true that actually is. As much as I wanted to take things back into us to save money, I'm finding how much more we can do to pay people to do things with us or for us. I have some photos, like I can't edit through all of them, but I got a friend who can edit, and they're great, and they need some money too. I'm like, okay, I can actually dedicate my time to something else now, because I'm just going to pay them to do it. I'm finding that I actually need to outsource a lot of the stuff I brought back in, and that's my current plan to get to that 90%. Don't know when or if I'll get there. And it's part of the creative side.
How would you evaluate, though, that decision matrix, right? Because so you said, like, okay, well, I'm full time now as part of the business. I can bring this in and we can save costs and kind of have a bigger take home at the end of it. But now you're finding, well, actually, it would be better served that I keep outsourcing it and managing it in a way where maybe the cost of outsourcing isn't as great, or better quality control, or what have you. What decision points are you making as you kind of go through that process of deciding, well, we brought it back in, we've got control of it now, and now let's kind of make it more efficient? How are you making those decisions?
Honestly, it's going to sound really dumb, but it's all just a feeling at this point. I don't have any formula behind it. It's, she is super creative, and she has a very specific vision in mind, and I want to help her achieve that. And at times, especially with photos, because I do a lot of photo work outside, I have things that I want. So I'm pretty particular about like the people I allow to work with me on the edits and things like that. But I just kind of feel it out. And I'm like, you know what? Let's talk this out. If we think we can afford it, Like I said, I tend to be a little bit of a finance nerd, and it's just a hobby. I'm nowhere near an expert, but let's take a look at whether or not I can afford to just pay somebody else to do this for me. Does it make sense to have somebody else do this for me? We want to support the creative community as much as possible, and I don't think we can do that by keeping it all to ourselves. And I like to share the workload, share the fun. And a lot of times we'll just do favor trades at this point.
Kind of work and trade kind of things.
The money. So,
yeah.
So wait, so you're doing a lot of like work and trade type of things where you're essentially saying like, we'll do this for you and you can do, and then you do this for us.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Very cool.
And one thing that we've talked about, and Jeff was just talking about, that I think is worth making sure that we state as a specific point is, even when you have someone whose full-time job is the behind-the-scenes running the business, you're still a part of your job is finding people to outsource to. Because Ernest and I have harped on here about outsourcing all of the time. If you're the only person in the business, if you're the on-camera talent and doing everything else. But what I'm hearing, and I personally also believe as well, is it's still your job to find those outsource opportunities. It's still your job. Even though your job is the behind the scenes stuff, still your job to find the things that can be done more effectively per time or dollar outside of the two of you.
Yeah, 100%. She'll bring things to me, but it's my job to research it, make sure that it's something we can do. Before this stream today, I spent pretty much up until the moment I got on camera researching new stream tech. Trying to figure out a better way to make this stream work, less problems. That was literally my entire day. Like I had finished everything else. She was just like, I don't like our setup. Find something new. Not that mean. No,
I'm just wishing I had someone I could say that to. I'm having all these
so I just spent the morning researching.
Issues. Fix it.
Yeah, I just spent the morning researching. And I had fun doing it, but. Ultimately, it's that I got to make it easier for all of us.
So, do you guys have, when you guys are planning things, and do you weigh taking big swings versus little swings? Like, so redoing your entire setup, right? That's kind of a massive undertaking, and if it doesn't work out, you spend all this money for a product that ultimately isn't better or doesn't ease kind of tension, right? And that's a major undertaking. That's why you spent all day researching it. You'll probably spend all day tomorrow or a lot of it, right?
Yep. And if I do pull the trigger, I'm going to spend weeks setting it up.
Right.
And how do I move that setup to a temporary thing while I gut her current setup? It's probably a pretty big swing there.
Right. But then, you're saying something like, maybe we'll try kind of making it applicable to the audience at large. Like, okay, I play a main game and I'm going to try like maybe every Friday night it'll be a variety, and that's maybe quote unquote a small swing. But how do you, because you're also emotionally supportive, right? And so how do you judge the side of like, look, I think you should or shouldn't do this, and kind of balance all of that?
Honestly, I think I'm a believer in taking risks. Both me and Stella, our entire life and career in this space has been one giant risk. When we first, being the married couple doing this business together has been great. From the moment we started seriously dating, she decided she wanted to be a full-time cosplayer and creator. And I just was I could see that passion, and I told her, just make the choice and go with it. I support it either way. She chose to be a creator. We wanted to be out in California where we saw just different opportunities. She was born and raised in New York, for anybody that's curious. And we wanted to be out in the LA area. So we literally just moved. We discussed it, but we just moved. She wants to focus more on streaming. She just made that call and decided to go with it. You have to trust your gut to a certain extent. So for somebody who wants to turn on that game and turn on that camera and stream, if you're scared to do it, just do it. You saw us break the stream and come right back. You have to bounce back through it.
Come back with the stream broken, stop the stream again, fix it again, and then go live.
And I understand that like there's certain things out there that like you have to weigh your risk, but I truly believe that if you don't take the chance, you're just not going to be happy with yourself. And I find a massive amount of importance of that. So don't quit your day job to be a full-time streamer if you've never done it in your life. But
so I'm going to tee you up with the 60-minute softball question then, Jeff, because there's something that I've heard a lot kind of for people who pursue creative arts as kind of a means of living, as their primary source of income, right? And it's this.
Yeah.
If you can imagine yourself doing anything else, then go do that. But for Stella, it sounds like there was nothing else. This was it. Like, I want to do this. This was the end-all, be-all.
This was the anything else that you were talking about.
Right.
So she was in charge of an entire art department for a large company. She's designed things for as a graphic artist for some pretty cool companies. But she did not imagine herself in that world forever. She left to do this. And I don't know if that's the case for everybody. Like, I can't speak for everyone. You're right. That is a tough question to answer.
Right. Because that was my nice way of like, I know Joel was lurking around earlier, and I know Joel would kill me if I didn't like find a way to pour water on Chase the Dreams. Just a little bit. But I believe it though, because at some point you've got to make a decision, right? And so this, beyond the administrative side, it's like, look, I'm doing this. I can't live in both worlds anymore, right? So either I'm leaving one and I'll find some sort of fulfillment by having this little piece, or I'm throwing myself into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like to speak on like myself, I was working a job that I was on autopilot. I didn't fully enjoy it. Company was great. Benefits were great. I could have continued to do it. I wanted to be doing this. I wanted to be doing what I do now all the time. I was finding a way to do it. So with Galen, when I first reached out to him, it wasn't as much, can I do this, but help me find a way to do it. Because I was going to do it anyway, but I wanted to do it the best way.
Oh man, I'm hearing Galen in the back of my mind, like, listen, I'm going to make this purchase and it's going to happen. I understand that this is not, the most financially sound decision, but it's happening. So buddy,
you're talking about the normal use case for someone approaching me for my services. So I've already decided to do this thing. Now I need help to figure out how.
True. I was also in a position ready to wait it out as long as I needed to, but I don't, like I said, I can't always recommend that you quit your job and become a full-time streamer if you've never done it. But if you know you want to do it, at a certain point, you have to try it. And you have to pull that Band-Aid at some point. Just go for it. And thankfully, I've had the support structure to be able to do it myself. I've been able to be that support structure for Stella, and we've built this entire community within our own circle to feed off each other and help each other make those big risks that are incredibly scary. Because if you think that what we're doing, we're just doing it easily, it's not.
So here's a question. How do you balance, because the last show was about, working with community managers. And I found for the most part, with few exceptions, everyone is very friendly and cordial and very personable. And it's obviously different for you because you're in a relationship. But how do you balance look, we need to kind of put on the business, like this is our relationship from a business standpoint. And then how do you manage it at the same time of being like, look, well, we're personally connected as well. And so how do you balance that with people that you also work with, that you contract with, that you're friends with?
We screw up a lot. There's that. We're not perfect. But it really does get to a point of just reminding people sometimes in the conversation, I'll do it with Stella. I'll do it with the friends that I work with, where we stop and like, so we're going to talk the business side for a second, friend aside, wife aside, whatever, like this is business. Cool. Is this going to put too much of a strain on us? And if it does, like, thankfully, can use some of my photographer friends that I work with. At a certain point, if it puts too much of a strain on like the friendship side of things, look, I'll go with total third party at this point, because I value the personal relationship more than I value the business. And I think that's what's allowed us to stay strong through it, is the constant communication in knowing that we're going to mess up.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. One thing we're, believe it or not, nearing an hour despite some tech difficulties. We're a little under it, but I wanted to get people to ask questions if they had any, in terms of like what it's like to work with, you know, what it's like to handle the behind the scenes stuff, or what it's like finding someone to help you with those kinds of things. So if you've got questions, ask away. But also, I wanted, while that's going on, I wanted to ask you. So recently, you guys have been doing or starting a really cool series where Stella uses a lot of her, you know, creative abilities, cosplay, makeup, otherwise, to make other broadcasters into something related to them. So like Valkyrie was made into the Valkyrie skin, right, of Fortnite kind of thing.
Those streams are awesome, and all of you really in chat need to check them out.
Thanks, guys.
Being completely sincere, no bullshit.
Yeah, an interesting thing about it though is you're streaming that on Caffeine, not on Twitch, just but so because Stella kind of goes between the two platforms. So, well, in case people have, you know, questions while that's coming in, at a high level, like very high level, what was involved in the process of getting that show up and running?
Well, one of the first things you'll learn about high level is there's about, if the picture is this big, I can tell you about this much of what went in.
And that's why I was asking high level. Not you know, don't break NDAs, don't tell us things that you're not supposed to talk about, all that kind of stuff. But like, what process-wise, what goes into that idea coming to be, or starting somewhere in someone's head and coming to
timeline to execution day. Like first time you were thinking about it to like actually doing a show even.
That conversation has been roughly a year in the making. It was a lot of conversations with them, figuring out the budget, figuring out
them being Caffeine,
how we're going to make it happen, if it's feasible, if people are going to want to do it. A couple of them, you know, doing a little bit of test the waters, you know, like that first Transform stream she did was just kind of like, hey, let's see if this works. And we made a call to some people and made it happen. And the actual aspect of doing this with them, and I don't know if you guys know this, but Fox is one of the big backers for Caffeine. That's actually where we're doing the show at every week. So right now she's on doing her build up to. So she's making a costume for Skara, if anybody knows who that is. And Thursday, we will be down at the Fox Studios, and we will be live streaming the transformation of Skara into a new costume. So she has to do one a week. But yeah, it's been about a year in the making. Lots of sitting down and working out the logistics.
I'm sure, and I'm going to put words, sorry, again, real quick. How much frustration did you have at points? Because it's fun, right? But
it's an ongoing level of expected frustration. It's not anger frustration, but it's just like that level of workload frustration. Like there's so much going on. I'm in contact with them pretty regularly. Like I actually have blinking messages right now from them telling me to respond. It's an ongoing process. The frustration building up to it, you could see those late night meetings and phone calls with Stella where she's trying to set this up and how much it would actually wear on her and wanting this so badly. But I don't know if you guys know how hard it is to make a costume in 1 week.
I can't imagine.
But if you also remember last year, she did one costume a week as just can I do this? And I think that was step one, figuring out whether or not she could do this, because I'm sure she had a grander vision in mind. She doesn't tell me all the time what she's planning. She's just like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I think that was probably the first step. And now a year of planning while doing that cosplay a week, yes, we can actually pull this off with somebody else now.
Okay, so a full year of contact, it sounds like, before things actually went, having to figure out budget, location. How did you get in touch with people who are going to be, you called it, is it the show or the series called Transformation, it sounded like?
Stella Transforms.
Stella Transforms. How do you find the people that Stella transforms? Ballpark, again, not if you can.
We have agency contact. We work with a couple agencies and Caffeine directly, figuring out who they want. They send us a roster. We look through it and reach out to what we feel would be the best for everybody.
And then are you in collaboration with them about which costume it is? Are you
once the person signs off on a date, they are in immediate contact for measurements with Stella. So she's actually, like right now, she's building for Skara. I think she has everybody planned through the end of April.
Oh, okay.
And she's usually building out measurements 2 to 3 weeks in advance.
So within 1 week, she's building the costume for one person. She just finished doing it live with another person. She's getting measurements for maybe 2 or 3 other people, plus the rest of your lives and work.
Yep, and then I have a constant flow of the data from there, the money from there, the everything coming into me, and I'm making sure the people who need to see what they need to see is going to them.
So a big part of the reason, I can't see chat at all, so I don't know if questions have come in, but a big part of the reason that we wanted to get Jeff on to talk about this is to show just how much goes into running these businesses every single day, and it's not even remotely just the on-camera work. If you want to build this into something that is sustainable, meaningful, will support you, will support maybe even other people.
We wanted it to be the kind of like scared straight up, this is what actually goes into being a streamer or a broadcaster or a creative. Because
we didn't even get into how do you find someone like this. Stella happened to be lucky to be married to someone who has a good head on their shoulders and is interested and willing and
appreciate that
kinds of things, right? Oh, come on, you guys were one of the most organized sets of clients I've ever come across before working with me.
And I'll speak for Galen in that when we've seen this, it's always been a spouse, or a longtime girlfriend, boyfriend.
Yes.
It makes sense in most cases.
So assuming you aren't, marrying just to build up a business, what kinds of things? Say you have a friend who's in Stella's position of looking to bring on someone like you, but they don't have a spouse who is.
So they're looking to outsource the admin side.
What would you say that they should look for if they were to find their own Jeff? I hear that you're not for hire.
I am not quite for hire on that. It is. I don't know if I could take on another workload like this, but I don't really know. I mean, just make sure that you understand what it is you want. What do you need them to do for you? And make sure it's something that they can handle. You now become, you've probably all sat in on interviews before and tried to get a job. You get to be on the other side asking the questions. You get to be the interviewer asking them if they can complete the tasks that you need. And that's about really all it's going to be, is figuring out who's going to do everything you need at the right price. And I don't know what that price is going to be. It could be trade. It could be money. It could be anything. But
how do you guys figure out what it is that needs to be done or next? You're saying, if they can do what you need, but I've certainly heard from people who say, I don't even know what it is that I need someone to take off my plate that would make a big impact or something like that.
Honestly, if you don't know what you need to take off your plate, I don't think you're ready to bring on somebody else. Okay. Because I think if you're going to take somebody else's time, and I'm a true believer that there is only one thing in this world we have to truly offer people, and that is our time. Because it's the most finite thing we possess. So if you're going to ask somebody for their time, make sure you know what you're going to ask of them. Okay. And if you don't know, figure that out first.
That's interesting. So I know you kind of touched on it. Did you map out all the various like tasks and functions and things that like needed to be done, and how granular and how detailed did you get with it?
Probably from the first moment we even started thinking about me leaving my last work was her creating a giant master list of everything that she does day to day, the things that I was already doing and things that she'd like me to do. It was a few months of just creating, I guess, the master list, which has probably been revised 100 times over already.
Gotcha. And so, we got another good question in chat. So, any advice for partners or spouses that want to take a similar path? If you could go back to a younger Jeff and give him 5 tips for kind of like what the path forward would be.
I mean, I want to give him all the little shortcuts and the reminder that don't forget to ask for help.
I think that's a huge one. I think at large is that people are afraid to ask for help and just afraid to ask for things in general.
Yeah, I mean, Stella Transforms is probably one of the biggest things of asking. It was her starting this new thing with caffeine and saying, "Can we do this?" And then piquing enough curiosity that they kept the conversation going. It all started because she sat down and said, "I want to do something bigger scale. Do you think we could do this?" Yeah, I mean, maybe that might be the biggest piece of advice for me 5 years ago, her 5 years ago, is don't be afraid to ask and don't be afraid to try.
Nice. What would you say the most important skill you have and that she has kind of for the business?
I honestly, I think it's I don't know. That's a pretty tough one. We don't really dwell on failure. We try our best to learn from it and figure out where we failed. But I think the idea of failure is not as scary to us. Mm-hmm. So that has been a huge asset to both of us. Honestly, with the things I do with her, just the fact that I do find enjoyment in some things that people do not typically find enjoyment in.
I think you've described Ernest and my business just to a T.
Yeah, it's really, really boring stuff, but it's just some people enjoy doing. So, like, I don't want to do what either of you do, but I enjoy knowing what it is you do. Mm-hmm. So.
You don't like staring at a bunch of documents on this monitor over here and inputting it on these monitors back here?
I mean, if I was screen sharing right now, you would see something very similar. Yeah, with some video that I'm monitoring as well. But
all right, so I'm gonna give the chat a couple more minutes. I don't think we have any other questions coming in, and it sounds like you've got some.
Button mash fixing. I don't know if I had 5 top tips for that one. I try and keep things simple, but.
That's another tip. Keep it simple.
There you go.
Don't be afraid to ask. Keep it simple. Don't be afraid of failure. We got the 3.
I'd say that 3 is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've got some potential fires to put out, Jeff. The flashing lights, messages, streams on other screens.
Oh no, those are more. It's a growing list of things coming up for this Thursday that I just need to address.
Well, we are at about an hour anyway, so we could definitely let you go there. Thank you for coming on to the show and for putting up with all of our technical issues, because
fine. Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't hope I was able to provide something to the viewers and chat out there, but
yeah, well, I will say
honestly, I'm just winging it for the most part. Like I like to think I've been learning, but I guess there's another tip, understanding that I don't actually know what I'm doing half the time. I'm just figuring it out as I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big part of working in a newer industry where there aren't decades of process that you can pull from and things like that, and being willing to do that and being willing to try it and maybe fail and learn from it is a pretty big thing that helps there.
Well, and it's a completely different perspective, right? Like it's a perspective that is not talent, not on air, not being the creative piece of it, not the driving force, right? Mm-hmm. Like if Stella doesn't stream or do anything creative, that's it. That's the end of it.
Yes.
But there are other things that are just as important that have to happen. And so you offered a great perspective on just that piece of it. You may not think you did, but no, it was great, Jeff. So we really appreciate you coming on.
We can go into sign off from here. Jeff, tell us
Plug it
where
all.
we can find you or Stella, and what are some of the cool things that you're working on?
You can find me. My screen name pretty much everywhere is Make Your Own Fun. All one word. Don't worry about capitals or numbers or anything in there. StellaChuu is CHUU or 5 U's, depending on if somebody stole her name in the platform beforehand.
One of them like this long.
Yes. It's 5 U's in some places, 2 U's in others. If you want to find her, StellaChuu with 2U's.com links out to everything. And what was the other part?
What are some cool projects that you're working on, or a cool project that you want to talk about?
Cool projects we're working on is getting through Stella Transforms is going to be a big one.
So if you want to see some big Twitch personalities get transformed into, is it announced what's
a character of their choice?
The character of their choice. There you go.
So then this Thursday, right? Sounds like you've got Skara.
Skara, we will be on at caffeine.tv/StellaChuu at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time until 9 o'clock. And I will always be working on I love working on the behind the scenes. I have some cool projects I'm working on with a couple studios out in the Hollywood area to bring streaming to more of a forefront. And I can't really go much into detail, but the streamer space is definitely being watched by the big leagues out there. And I'm blessed to be part of the behind the scenes on that.
All right. Ernest, who are you, in case people don't know?
I am Ernest Jones. I am a CPA. I work with broadcasters, game studios, talent, anyone who's around that needs tax prep or tax planning. So that's me. And my illustrious...
Or are we not close enough to tax deadlines?
What was that?
So do you hate yourself yet, or are we not yet quite close enough?
No, I told you this is my fun time. Like, people constantly need me, and I'm constantly like doing stuff for people, right? Like after
like dollar signs for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I was just completely wired. But then come April 15th, like no one will want to talk to me or return my call or anything. I gotta go prep some documents after the stream for you. Well, hey. And my co-host. Why don't you, my infinitely patient and just wonderful all-around human being.
Yeah, I'm Galen Herbst Cortina. I'm a financial planner. I also am clearly a tech guru extraordinaire with how the stream runs. And so my job is to make sure that streamers are actually planning for both their business and their personal finances. And you can find me on Twitter at, I think we've got a link, and also my website is buffyourfinances.com, and every once in a while, it used to be weekly, and I am not that good at being consistent about it anymore, at pajamapantsfinance.com if you want really tons of boring but insightful articles on different stuff around tax and finance and business in streaming.
And I think you just got a really fun question from Toys R Us Kids.
Okay.
It's about, do you recommend that streamers draw income to create an LLC and then draw income as an employee of that LLC? That's a highly technical question. And what that involves is
I'm used to getting.
That depends on your own facts and circumstances and your own legal exposure. From the tax structure standpoint, that often makes sense, but you're always doing this first for legal protection. And I'm not an attorney. Our Joel is, the attorney on the show, and he would be better served to answer the legal issues revolving around that question. But
we do have some past shows actually covering that topic.
We do.
And from the behind the scenes side, I can tell you a lot of work went into the final decisions for how we approached that. So,
yeah, I think it was probably a 2-week in terms of timeline decision making with back and forth emails amongst all of us, right? So there's, it's not one of those things you just throw yourself into. So the executive summary is, would I recommend it? Maybe. Depends on what you've got going on.
Is it something that streamers, once they've reached a certain level of success, often consider? for legal reasons and tax purposes? Yes.
I would say yes.
Does it
Absolutely.
make sense for your specific situation? That's something that we frankly won't answer on air because there's too many like specific details that we need to know. And as far as I can recall from the name that I heard, we aren't under contract to talk about that kind of thing. And as a part of our professional liability, should not be talking about that with random people who ask us questions. Apologies. But we do have some past broadcasts on that topic. If you look at StreamerSquare's YouTube channel, there should be some content there, as well as some articles on the site describing a little bit about the basics there. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Chat, viewer, and all those kinds of things while I had technical issues. We will be back next week. Ernest, I don't remember what we said we were going to be talking about next week. And
we haven't decided yet.
Situation, I might actually be Joel next week.
Not to steal people away from a chat, but can I open another window plug in there?
Go watch Stella.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what's going on. I'm going to fire it up right now and see what's going on.
We have a wig master in the house trying to...
A wig master? Is this like
He's really good at wigs. So.
Oh, I thought this was potentially a Netflix series with like a sushi master.
I can't really.
Well, I'll post it for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, thank you, folks. I'm gonna close it down just so I can actually go back to using my PC. But we will see you guys in a week.